All right. What's going on, guys? Liam, good to see you again. Thanks again for last week's super chat. Much appreciated. You guys are always here at the beginning. Love it. Uh, yeah, good job, Liam. Greg says, what's going on? I hope you're having a good holiday weekend. What's going on, Carlos? So what we're going to talk about today is, I have taken a break, not only from YouTube, from coding. Like I kind of said in the title, I haven't written a line of code in a week, and it's kind of interesting, feels good. Also going to talk about kind of stepping my game up in the whole Swift world. We'll dive into that in a little bit. And then I kind of got a new toy that I bought for my little cousin, trying to get him into programming. This little R2D2 guy here. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. Say hi, say what's up to everybody. Tony, what's going on? Mark, good to see you again. Adam, what's going on? Scott, Wilfred, yep. Is there French people here? I'm not sure. Let's find out. Sai, what's going on? All right, so yeah, like I said, I've kind of been taking a break. Haven't written a line of code in a week. It's been awesome. It's kind of got me rethinking the pace I was keeping up at, because I feel like a broken record when I say how many hours of work a week I work. But 40, 50 hours a week, doing YouTube, doing coaching. I just feel like I was at a very fast pace, and it's been nice to just take a break, not do any YouTube videos, not do any coding. Like I said, haven't written a line of code since I got here. It's been nice. Kind of has me rethinking if I want to keep up that pace. Don't get me wrong, that pace was nice because I was making decent money, and then I was also funneling that money into cryptocurrencies. And if you follow Bitcoin at all, that's doing very well. So that's been cool. But at the same time, it's also nice to like not have that stress and just kind of sit around and chill for a little bit. So when I say it's got me rethinking things, I'm not gonna like quit YouTube or quit contract or anything like that. It's just, man, do I want to keep up at that 40 to 50 hour pace each week? That's really what I'm kind of rethinking. Maybe I should drop it down to like 30 and then actually have some semblance of a social life as well. So big things coming up in 2018. I got a lot of different directions I can go. I have no idea which path I'm going to take as of right now, but we'll find out. So that's just what I've been up to. However, so today's Sunday. Today's kind of the last day of, vacation, if you will. I'll still be here on the East Coast in my parents' house. Kind of funny. See this picture back? I guess it's over there, right there. In the last live stream, my parents checked it out, and they were devastated because that picture was crooked. They're like, you're putting this out on the internet for the world to see, and the picture's crooked. So it's kind of funny. I thought that was pretty hilarious. So they made sure when I told them I was doing my stream, they're like, no, you straighten that picture out. So it's straight this week. So anyway, we're back in the swing of things on Monday. I got some videos planned out for next week. They're probably going to be easier videos just because, like I said, I don't have my full setup. More videos will be coming next week, and I'm going to be back into my contracting next week. So back to normal, but it has been a good break. So if you're new to the stream, you haven't seen this before, I usually talk about a couple topics, and then we dive into some Q&A. So while I'm blabbering here for a little bit, go ahead and start asking questions, and then I'll catch up in the chat as I get done. So the next thing I want to talk about is me stepping my game up with Swift. And what I mean by that is I feel like I have a very good grasp on like the fundamentals, the basics, the stuff you use in day-to-day stuff. But we all follow those people on Twitter. We all see those blog posts where somebody writes this crazy advanced Swift stuff and you're just like, what? It's just like way over your head. Well, I feel like I'm ready to step up into that world, right? I'm not there yet. Again, I've only been doing this, for those that don't know, almost 3 years. So I'm still, early in my career. Whereas people that are typically writing those posts, have been programming for a very long time. So I feel like I'm ready to start dabbling in that world and start stepping up. So I'll go ahead and tell you what I purchased this weekend. And I'm going to do a book review on this as well. So we'll get this up here. So this is the Advanced Swift book. Actually, let me switch back to Twitter real quick. If you don't follow Ole Begeman, I may be butchering his name. I apologize, but he's definitely a good follow. I mean, you can see he has almost 17,000 followers. So he's the guy that put out the Swift 4 playground at the very beginning. That's kind of where that's where I discovered him anyway. Because everybody in the iOS community was retweeting that and talking about that. So definitely recommend following him. He puts out a lot of good stuff. Well, he co-authored this book called Advanced Swift. They just updated it for Swift 4. I ordered it. It should get here tomorrow. So I'm going to be going through that book. And then let's go ahead and switch back. Sorry. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of give you a feel for what they're talking about here. Like I said, it's just more advanced. Like I said, you've all seen the blog posts and the Twitter posts and everything like that, where there's like a whole nother level of Swift programming. So I'm going to dive into that in the coming weeks. And then, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and do a full book review on it once once I'm done, to kind of let you guys know, if I feel like you guys should also take that leap, or that way if somebody asks like, hey, do you think I'm ready for this book, I'll have a better idea. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm gonna go for the next couple weeks. Dive into that, and like I said, I'll do a video on it, book review, recommendation, so you'll get a good feel for it. But yeah, I feel like I'm just ready to take that next step in the in my learning, because this YouTube channel has helped a ton. It's like, yeah, you kind of know the fundamentals, but when you actually have to teach it, produce a video on it, and you're putting it out there on the internet, so it's going to get critiqued. And trust me, people pick apart my video sometimes. If I mess up a line of code here, or if I don't implement something perfectly. So it's been a good learning experience to put yourself out there to that kind of criticism, to basically really learn the fundamentals. So again, I feel like I'm good there. Now it's time to take the next step. And that's what I'm going to be doing in a couple months. And also, it kind of ties into interview prep, as you guys know, at the beginning of 2018, I'm going to be making the rounds again to the major companies. So yeah, well, that'll kind of help with the preparation for that too. So got to do that. And then the dreaded whiteboard stuff, I got to get back into that, the cracking the coding interview. That's never fun, but got to do it. The last thing I wanted to talk about before I dive into the chat in the Q&A is I got this, it's always backwards, I can't remember this Sphero R2-D2 toy. It's allegedly programmable in Swift, like it ties into the Swift playgrounds. Here's the actual R2-D2 for size. I played with a little bit for my cousin. He's like 7 years old, I believe, or 8 or 9, 10, 11, somewhere in that range. And he's like super smart. So I'm trying to get him into programming. So he's been playing with the Swift playgrounds a little bit, and we dabbled in this a little bit. I'm going to do a video on this as well, so I'll do like a full review and more in-depth details. But the initial dabbling, because if you've done Swift playgrounds, there's like lessons. We did like the first 4 or 5, and I would say that I wouldn't start off with the R2D2 one, because like on the 3rd lesson, like it expects you to already know what a for loop is and to implement a for loop to do something. My cousin's 11 years old. He doesn't know what a for loop is. So I'm assuming they expect you to have some base level of Swift before you do it. Again, I'm going to dive in more, do a video on it. I'll probably go through the whole thing and then do a video on it. But I want to give you guys a good recommendation on if this is good or not to buy for, because I know a lot of you have kids and they might want to be getting into programming. So yeah, I'll give you some recommendations on that. But I look excited. Hopefully he takes to it. Like I said, he's a super smart kid, so I think he'll make a cameo in the video. So hopefully I can get a little programmer going. But that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. I'll go ahead and get into the Q&A here. Go ahead. Oh, I can't scroll that chat. I don't like not having my my command center, as I call it here. Give me a second to pull up the chat window so I can scroll it. All right, now I got my chat up. All right, is where I left off. All right, Sai says they want auto layout tutorials. Yep, that's a very popular one, or popular request, so I'm definitely going to be doing those soon. So to give you guys a kind of rundown of my videos that have coming out soon, again, while I'm here home on vacation, I don't have access to all my usual equipment, so I do have to probably do some simpler videos. So I'm going to do one on, again, this R2D2 thing. Also going to do one about, are you too old to program? Liam, if you're still here, Liam, you were the inspiration for that. We talked about that in the comment section a while ago, about being too old to get started. So as you guys may know, I'm just turned 36. I wrote my first line of code at 33, so I don't feel you're too old to get started, but I won't dive into that video too much. We'll be touching on that. And then the next major tutorial is going to be my networking one that I have to promise to my Patreon community that they voted on and stuff. So that's kind of the preview of what's coming down the pipeline. I also have another one that I'm calling magic numbers. I'm not sure if you ever heard the term magic numbers in programming, but this will help you clean up your code and make your code more readable as well. So those are the more recent ones that are going to come out in the next week or two. After that, who knows? But yeah, auto layout is high up on that list because A, that's probably an easy one for me to make, and B, a lot of people have been asking for it. Gustavo says, hi, Sean. Don't you think taking a break is worse for keeping motivated? I don't know. I'm motivated. I'm excited to get back and get started. I think everybody's going to be different when it comes to this. Meaning, yeah, I can see where it would kill people's motivation, if you're on a good roll. But for me, it was nice to take a break, and now I'm itching to get back. I can't wait to get back into the flow. So I guess everybody's different, but I don't think it killed my motivation. I also think it matters if you love what you do. I love programming. I love what I do. So me being like, I'm not going to get demotivated by just taking a week off. However, if you don't love what you do and this is just a job for you and you would much rather be doing other things, then I could see where taking a week off and doing those other things, it would be hard to get back into the swing of actually, getting back to coding. Whereas me, I love coding, so I can't wait to get back to that. So it didn't hurt my motivation. Wolfrey says, you actually motivated me to launch my own YouTube channel about Swift and French. That's awesome. Go ahead and link it up, Wilfred. I don't mind. I'll definitely check it out, give you some love if it's good. I only want to promote good videos. So yeah, I'll check that out. Well, if it's in French, I probably couldn't tell if it was a good video or not. But no, that's awesome. And you guys know I always preach having an awesome online presence. And a YouTube channel is, you can't get any better than that because people get to see your personality and how you learn, how you explain things. So, like I said, Twitter, I think, is the minimum. Having a blog where you write blog posts to show your knowledge, that's great as well. But like a YouTube channel or a podcast, that's like next level because, again, people get to know you and they know your personality. So if they think you're smart and they think you're, somebody they can work with, that's all good. So good job for that. Von Don says, which advanced Swift book are you reading? How is it? Just in case you guys showed up late, I'll go ahead and just pop it up real quick. I won't dive into it too long, but it's this Objective-C. I don't know how to exactly say the name of this company, up, down, whatever. But it's just their advanced Swift book. They just updated for Swift 4. If you just Google advanced Swift for Swift 4 and look for this Objective-C brand, you'll find it for sure. All right, back to my... I really miss having my huge monitor. All right. So, Wolfrey says, what is your usual setup for filming tutorials? So I film on my camera, my intro. If you guys know, I do like an intro, then I dive into the screen share. And then, I was using just QuickTime to film my screen as I did it. And I just had a mic that I would, so my mic plugs into my phone. So I'm actually recording to my phone. And then I send that to Final Cut and line up the audio with the video. So if you ever see, sometimes if my videos, like the audio doesn't seem to be lining up, that's me, I just messed it up. But yeah, and then now I'm starting to use this OBS software for like live streams, and then also to where I can have like my picture in the lower right as I'm coding, as I'm doing stuff. So yeah, that's the basics of it. I don't have a crazy advanced, audio video setup. I feel like I'm pretty basic because I wanted to start off with just basic stuff, and then if I liked it and the YouTube channel took off and I decided to stick with it, then I would get a whole slew of upgrades to actually get some really good stuff, which may be coming around the corner. Kimbo says, good idea, Wilfred. There's not much ways to learn mobile apps development in France. Yeah, so I can only speak for America, but yeah, if there's a niche, if there's no Swift channels in French, then yeah, you definitely have a good idea going there. Kirk says, I bought 3 of their books. I'm assuming we're talking about the Objective-C. That's probably not how you say it, but seemed a little too advanced for me at first, but I watch their videos and love how they break down and analyze the way they code. Yeah, they have some good videos as well. And I kind of felt the same way. I haven't revisited their videos or their books in a long time, but when I did check it out, it's probably a year ago or so. So I was, pretty early in my career, and I felt the same way. It was advanced over my head, but like I said, that's what I mean. I'm ready to take that step. I feel like I got the basics nailed down, good to go. So it's time to go to the next level with that. Sean says, been watching NBA games. Yep. I've been watching a lot because my sister's been in town too, and she's a huge NBA fan. I got her hooked into it. When she came out to visit me in San Francisco, she went to a Warriors game, and she was hooked. She fell in love. So now she's like a big NBA fan. So she's been watching it with us as well. Kiko says, can't wait for that book review videos. I wanted to buy that book too, but seemed really advanced. Yep, like I said, I'm going to dive into it, and that's the point. Like, I want to either A, save you guys money, saying yeah, so you'll know like, A, this might be too advanced, or B, don't have you alleviate any worries of it being too advanced, and then you can go out and buy it and step your game up too. So that's kind of the whole point. Liam says, yep, been waiting for that. I assume we're talking about the too old video. Yeah, Liam, I've had my notes, my outline for that video for a long time. As you've probably noticed on the channel, the past 3 weeks have been nothing but live streams. So I haven't done like a produced video in 3 weeks. So I've had that video like in my head, like ready to go, Liam, for a bit. I just need to sit down and record it is really all it takes. And I'll probably do that either today or tomorrow, so look for that one early next week. That's the one that's at the top of the list, Liam. So that'll be coming out soon. Ben says, hey Sean, did you see my interpretation of the results completion handler? Do you use something like this to clean up your function? So I did see that. I didn't have time to like dive in and like really dissect it. I mean, I did see that, and then it started like a pretty long conversation. And actually, John Sundell chimed in, so that was pretty cool. Anyway, yeah, I've seen that before. I've dabbled in it. It's not something I do. That being said, I will be the first to admit my completion handler closure game needs to be stepped up, right? And that's kind of what I'm talking about. I'm stepping my game up this next level here. So I'll definitely be looking into that. But as of right now, I just kind of stick with the basics. But that's not saying what you proposed is bad or anything. I just have kind of neglected my closure game, if you will, or completion handler, however you want to call it, which will change here soon. ATRC says, do you get worried about iOS being phased out as Google, Android, OS, and Android phones being very popular as of 2017? Also, iPhone X not being up to level as compared to OnePlus 5T or Samsung phones. You're going to get an extremely biased answer right now, so take that with a grain of salt. I will say I'm a huge Apple fanboy, so I think iPhone X is the best phone I've ever used. To say that it's not up to level to a OnePlus or whatever those other ones are, I think is ridiculous. I love the notch. Again, I drink the Kool-Aid. I'm a fanboy. I'm not going to say this is a rational opinion, but I love the notch. I think it looks distinct. If they didn't have the notch, it would look like every other phone. I don't know. I'm loving my iPhone X. So I don't agree with that. So to say iOS is going to be phased out as Google's Android becomes more popular. Now, I don't have the exact numbers for this, and I haven't looked at this in a while, so I could be wrong, and I'm sure somebody on the internet will correct me. But yes, Android has the market share, but on average, in general, Android users don't spend money compared to iOS users, right? Like, if you look at all the iOS users in the US and China and the UK, they're the ones spending money on app stores, spending money in apps. Whereas, yes, Android has worldwide market share, but it's not in, I don't want to sound like elitist doing this, but it's not in the most wealthy countries, so they don't spend the money that the iOS users use. So no, even if Android has 80% market share, the money's made mostly in general on iOS. So I don't think iOS is going to be phased out at all. But again, huge biased opinion, huge Apple fanboy. Take that for what it's worth. And I'm sure what I just said, people will probably argue with it, and that's fine. No big deal. Thomas Watland says he made it. Good. Glad to see you made the live stream. Wolfrey says, why don't you put a little more music at the beginning of each of your videos? I'll be happy to produce it for free if you need it. Yeah, I mean, so if you're not familiar with YouTube, right, YouTubers can't use like actual music, right? You get copyrighted strikes and the video gets taken down, demonetized, all this stuff. So, Wolfried, I'm all about finding copyright-free music that I can use. Because I use a site called, I believe it's Endemic Sound or Epidemic Sound, something like that. And it's basically $15 a month for like YouTube music, essentially. And that's kind of why you might hear a lot of the same music in like popular vloggers. It's because they're all kind of using that site. And there's a wide selection, but it's not like an endless selection. So yes, if you have music you produced, I would love to hear that. So hit me up, DM me on Twitter at SeanA0400, and we can talk. Todd Gore says, hey Sean, can you make a list of what someone needs to know to get a junior developer job? Do I need to know Firebase, for example, or can that wait? So that is a good idea, and I saw you talk about this in Slack, Todd. People just don't know where to start, or just they don't know the path. And to be fair, there is no one magical path that you take, right? So I could recommend like general paths, general things to know. And to be honest with you, Firebase wouldn't be on that list for me anyway. Like I said, I've worked on 7 or 8, 9, I don't even know the number, like production level apps. Firebase wasn't using any of them. The truth about Firebase is, and again, I'll say this disclaimer, I haven't looked into it in a while, but typically it's the independent developers that use Firebase because they need the backend and they can't build the backend themselves, or they want to save time building the backend themselves for whatever reason. The truth is, if it's a real company, like a real startup that raised money, or whatever, just a company, like they're not going to use Firebase for their backend. They're going to actually build their backend. You only see Firebase being used, like I said, typically on very, very small companies or independent developers, because unless they've changed something recently, Firebase pricing does not scale well. Like if you get a good amount of users, the Firebase pricing is just through the roof. Again, unless they've changed that recently. So anyway, to answer your question, Todd, I can try to come up with a list of main things to know. And to be honest with you, a lot of it is, if you look through my interview questions series list, where I go through all those topics, that's basically it, like what you need to know. I think a lot of people get hung up on like specific frameworks like MapKit, Core Data, whatever. The truth is those specific frameworks only get used in specific apps, right? Like again, 789 production apps, I think I've used MapKit once. And that's not to say MapKit's not popular. It's just the projects I was on didn't use MapKit, right? Like if the app idea doesn't involve a map, you're not going to use MapKit. So that's what I mean by all these independent like frameworks. You may or may not use them. So that's why when I say they're not important, I mean every developer doesn't have to know them. Like I think really nailing down the fundamentals. And again, if you go through my iOS interview questions list on my channel, which is not done yet, I still got a couple more topics to get through. But I think that is mainly what I would focus on rather than individual frameworks. Because again, you can spend all the time in the world learning core data, which everybody always asks me about. I've never used it once in my 3-year career. So, all right. Joan says, hi, regards from Colombia. What are the advanced Swift books that you read? Thanks, bro. So again, I'll just pop it up real quick. I won't talk about it too much. But bam, real quick, Advanced Swift, that's the one I just bought. It should be here tomorrow. I will be doing a book review on it after I get through it. And again, I don't mean to give you a super short answer. I've just covered it twice already. I just know that some people come in late to the stream and they probably don't see that. And I just activated Siri on my touch bar. Do that all the time. Hate it. So yeah, so that's my super quick answer. If you want the more detailed answer, watch the replay. I talk about it for a few minutes in the beginning. Neil says, okay, I take you watch the Unbox Therapy latest video. I don't think iOS is going anywhere, but let's see what Sean says. Yeah, so I'm actually, Neil, I'll probably watch that video now because I'm kind of curious what they say too. Again, I've done a lot of research on that like a year ago, so my information may be dated. Fully admit that, but Lathia says, you're doing a great job. Keep doing more. May God bless you and strength to you. Thank you. Yeah, like I said, I've been on a break for a little bit, but we'll be getting back to it here soon. Vishnu says, what's the best book for learning basics? I didn't really use books to learn. I used all the YouTube tutorials that are out there. I used raywonderlick.com, as I've said a bunch. So yeah, and with Swift, it's hard to get like a basic book for Swift because Swift is changing so much. That's why it's hard to get into books, even though I know I just plugged a book. That's actually the first Swift book I've ever bought, just to be clear about that. 3 years in my career, first Swift book I ever bought. It's all been like online videos, blog posts, tutorials, that kind of stuff. Thomas says, have you looked into Ionic at all? Looking for a way to get my apps over to other systems, but unsure about swapping between JavaScript and Swift while I'm still fresh at programming. So actually, Ionic is what drove me to be a native developer. This is back in 2015 when I decided to become a developer. The startup I was at, we built an app in Ionic, and I didn't know anything about development at the time, so I don't know if maybe our developers didn't do a good job, or maybe it was Ionic was a bad framework back then. I don't know. But the bottom line is the app was not great. And I was like, it just felt clunky, didn't feel native. It was very obvious it wasn't a native app. So after like going through that experience, that's when I was like, when I be a developer, I'm going native. Like native is the way to go because I felt that experience. So I've always had kind of a bad feeling towards Ionic due to that experience. Maybe that's unjust. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. But that's kind of how I feel about it. And so to the second point of your question about switching between 2 languages when you're just learning programming, I think that's a bad idea. I've talked about this before. I would focus on one till you get competent, in one language and then branch off to others. I feel trying to learn too many languages at once when you're just starting out is probably a bad idea. Because as you know one language more, it's much easier to learn the second one because you already know all the fundamentals of the first one. So that was the route I would take. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I feel like that would be the easier way to go for sure. VJ says, hi, Sean. I learned a lot from your videos. Can you explain which type of projects should be mentioned in resume, REST, networking location map, like the type of project a recruiter is looking for in resume? So I think you kind of nailed it. Again, I preach on this all the time. Networking is the biggest one. It's the one that gives programmers the biggest hang up in like interviews and stuff. Like I know I've messed up an interview because I messed up my networking. This was, way back. So I would definitely focus on networking. And like I mentioned earlier, the specific like maps and stuff, like maps is kind of a different one because a lot of people use maps. But yeah, networking is definitely the biggest one. And then when you're describing your projects, don't just like list frameworks you use. Like describe what you did and like the main problem you solved. Like when people are looking at resume, they don't want to just see a list of like okay, you played with core data, you played with MapKit, you played with networking. Like they want more detail on what you did. Don't get me wrong, don't write a paragraph, but like, 2 or 3 sentences describing the app and what it does, and that should do. Because if you just list frameworks, that tells me nothing as somebody hiring you. Like I don't know if you did one tutorial on it or if you're an expert on it. If you just list frameworks, like I don't know. And then even when you put like the scores next to it, like 1 of 10 or 5 of 10, like that also tells you nothing, because like who's judging that? More detail is the bottom line here. Ranjit says, "Sir, without MacBook, can learn iOS." Yeah, I'm not familiar with like Hackintoshes or Boot Camp or whatever. I don't know. I probably messed that up. I've always had a Mac, so I have no experience trying to do things without a Mac, so I probably can't provide a good answer there. Maybe somebody in the comments can. Kay Tarun says, "First, thanks for you. What is the best backend database for iOS apps without web developer?" I mean, I don't use them, so I just know Firebase is probably the most popular one. Or Parse Server now that it's open source. But again, do your own research and probably ask somebody that's actually used it, because I don't use those. But definitely Firebase and Parse are a good thing to look into. And I guess Realm might be making it a backend as well. Definitely check those out. Javine says, "Hello, Sean. Please share if you got audiobooks on iOS Swift. I'm not able to find a good one." So no, I feel like audiobooks for programming would be hard to like. That probably wouldn't make much sense, right? Because you want to see the code. You want to see the code laid out. Like I can't imagine somebody just like speaking the code and me getting it. That would probably be weird. So that's probably why you don't find coding books in audio book form. Fatali says, "Hi Sean, how about make a REST API and some OAuth 2 video tutorial?" Yeah, I mentioned before that is on its way for the Patreon community. So it's going to be released in the Patreon community first for like a week or two, and then I'll release it on the YouTube channel. But that video, that'll probably be the first one I make when I get home, because that is a more advanced video, and I want my whole command center, I call it, to make that video, because right now I just have my laptop. So I got to make some pretty basic videos while I'm here, but I'll probably be home in a week or two. So that'll be coming out soon. But that is going to be the first video I make when I get back to San Francisco. Wolfrey says, "Searching for audiobooks as well." Kind of just address that. Joan says, "Rajit, for sure you can install a virtual machine in Windows Host and start to code." Yep, like I know there's ways to do it. Like I said, I just don't have the experience to give a good answer. Rufus says, "Great, I'll tell you about the music stuff then. By the way, thank you for answering my questions. Really valuable stuff." No problem. That's what I'm here for on these live streams. So I kind of like that these live streams aren't too big yet, right? Like I can answer like every question. So it's cool. Like I've watched some other YouTubers, even ones that like aren't terribly huge, and their live stream chat is just, you can't, unless they super chat, like you can't see anything. So I'm glad that this chat is at a manageable pace to where I can answer it and give you guys, good value, right? Like if you come here and you ask a question, it's going to get answered, unless it's spam or you're trolling me or something. Yeah, we're not big enough yet that's an issue. Don't get me wrong, I hope to be big enough one day to where it is an issue, but for now it's cool. And I get to know you guys too, because a lot of you guys show up every week, so it's pretty cool. Junaid says, I forgot it. I need to be like highlighting these. Google Map or MapKit. I prefer MapKit. I like doing the iOS native stuff. Because to be honest with you, every time, like, I don't know if maybe I just am bad at it, but anytime I try to like install the Google SDK, like I always have trouble with it. And I would just much rather use the native iOS stuff. And I know Apple Maps got a bad rap when it first came out, and rightfully so. It wasn't ready. But I feel like they've done, over the past couple years, I feel like it's improved a lot. And anytime I've used it, I haven't had any issues with it. So I always go with MapKit. Mark says, "I concur on the Firebase comments. Firebase is not as important when working for a company." Yeah, like I said, a company's not going to use it, just flat out. Well, I'm sure there are some companies out there, but that's the exception to the rule for sure. Yeah, Mark says, "Learn fundamentals and learn to read documentation." Yeah, that'll take you far. Yeah, this is a good point, Mark. Actually, I might do a video on this. It's really learning how to learn, right? Because you're never done. I mean, yeah, you may think, networking is hard right now, but in 2 years from now, networking is going to be a breeze, but this new thing is now the hard thing. Like, right? It's like never ending. The goalposts keep moving. So you need to learn how to learn. Like, and Mark brought up a great point about documentation. That was a big step in my career when I went from like if it didn't have a YouTube tutorial or a blog post on it, like I couldn't implement it, right? And this is way back in the beginning. So there was a turning point in my career to where I started learning how to use documentation, and now it's like I feel like I can implement anything because now I've experienced, reading the documentation, learning from that and kind of figuring it out on my own. And that also comes with the experience of like understanding more how iOS works. So the combination of that really helps out. But yeah, learning how to learn is really the name of the game because you're never done learning. Like I said, there's always something bigger. Okay. Are you planning to look into RX Swift as well? So I've dabbled into, not necessarily RX Swift in general, but just reactive, programming. I don't want to say I wasn't a fan because I'll fully admit I didn't like fully get it and fully like utilize it or give it enough time to have a proper opinion on it. I was just basically, what my experience with reactive Swift or reactive programming was, I had to fix a project and I only had a week to do it, and it was in reactive Swift and I didn't know reactive Swift. So it was frustrating because I was under this immense like time crunch to like try to learn it, and I was just like, oh, if this was just normal, I could have had this done by now. So I was in a frustrating circumstance when I was messing with reactive programming. So that has obviously clouded my viewpoint towards it. Hopefully one day I'll be able to give it like a fair chance, but that's kind of my experience with it. Anyone trying to learn Swift and want to team up? I have a ton of resources, just not a lot of drive when it comes to learning all by myself. So yeah, I definitely hit Kirk up. I recommend this all the time. It doesn't have to be a mentor. You guys hear me talk about like mentors on Twitter and stuff. Doesn't have to be necessarily somebody more advanced than you, but just somebody going through the same things as you. Like I said, reach out on Twitter, connect. That's awesome. Siri just boosted your mic. Yeah, this touch bar, man. I'm with you on that, Ben. Oh, you can. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that. Ben, you're gonna have to tell me how to do that. I'm too lazy to look it up right now. But because it's right next to the delete key, and I hit Siri all the time. That's annoying. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. Mujtaba says, Sean, if you had a chance to start all over again and go back in time, will you move to San Francisco or you move somewhere else? I moved to San Francisco for sure. I love it in San Francisco. That being said, there could potentially be an opportunity in LA that I might seriously consider. First of all, I never thought I'd leave San Francisco, and I love it there. Don't have a bad thing. Well, it's not perfect, but I love it there. So it would take a lot for me to leave San Francisco. And the reason being is that I would move there again is because this is where all the demand is, so to speak, for programmers. Not all of it, but this is where the most concentrated demand for developers are, more than any other city. And like, it's just awesome to just walk around the city and be like, oh, there's GitHub's office. Oh, there's, Google. There, just everything is like right here. So it really helps if you're like interviewing for like junior developer jobs too. You can literally hit up all the major companies that are just, within a 7-mile radius of you. It's pretty cool. Kian says, hello, could you show me collection view inside table view? So I've only done that once, so I wouldn't say I'm a pro at it. Yeah, I don't know, maybe, again, my video list is a mile long, but that is a good one. Because I know, like, when I saw my designs and I was like, oh, I got to do that, I'm like, I'm going to have to look that up. I'm going to have to research that. Hey, Sean, how your MacBook Pro works? Are all keys still okay? Looking for more power for development, but afraid to buy current model. Do you have an opinion on this MacBook Pro, good or bad? So I think what you're referring to is a lot of people have talked about keyboard issues, like the key sticking or the keyboard breaking. 95% of the time, my MacBook is like, off to the side, and I have my huge monitor and my external keyboard. So my keyboard's fine, but that's because it rarely gets used. So I can't comment on that. I have had issues with the USB-C ports. Like, sometimes they just don't work and I have to like unplug and replug in. But again, this is the 2016. This is like the launch day model. So these kind of hardware stuff is a little bit expected. If you get the 2017 model, I don't know if that's what you're looking at, I would assume they ironed a lot of those out. Or if you even wait till the 2018 model, you would have to assume they've worked out a lot more kinks. But again, I have the launch model, the one that's supposed to have the most kinks, and I have had very, very minimal issues with it. Like I said, the USB thing is more of just an annoyance. I just like unplug it, plug it back in, and it's good to go. And my keyboard has been fine, but it doesn't get used. Yeah, so tips on salary negotiation. Gary, no, I don't have any because like I would say I'm a horrible like negotiator. Like, you guys have heard me talk about my contracting rate and how I'm probably underpaid because I don't offer enough, so like I would probably say I'm a bad negotiator. And the one time I did negotiate my salary, which is at my very first startup, um, I, I had no leverage. Like I mentioned this before, I was fresh out of a boot camp, no experience. I was just looking for somebody to take a chance on me. So I think I've told the story. Like I took 60 grand at my first startup, and depending on where you're at, that sounds like a lot or a little bit amount of money. But in Silicon Valley for a developer, 60 grand is below market value. So I took below market value because I was like, just give me a chance, give me a couple months, I'll prove myself, and then I'll ask for a raise. That was like my whole plan going in, and that's what happened. I was there for 5 or 6 months, asked for a raise, and I got bumped up to 100 after 5 months from 60. So, and I had savings, so I didn't need to negotiate the little extra salary. So I kind of had some leeway to kind of be able to take that whole like prove it time period that I call it. So I would say I'm a bad negotiator anyway, so I don't have any tips on that. Kian says, I should study iOS at Udemy or Treehouse. I don't have any Udemy. I don't have any Udemy experience. I did Treehouse when it first came out, but again, when I was doing these online courses like Treehouse, Udacity, this was literally during Swift 1. Like Swift 1.2 had just came out, and that changed a whole bunch of stuff, and that caused a bunch of issues. So my point is, when I was going through these courses, they were just figuring out Swift, so I can't really give a strong opinion on if their courses are good. I'm sure, over Swift 2, 3, and now 4, they've improved greatly, expanded their coursework, and this is also, again, Swift is brand new. So their forums, like their discussion boards were bare. Like nobody was on there, and anybody that was on there, nobody had like a lot of experience in Swift. So it was kind of just, like I said, it was like trailblazing. It was the very first one. So that's my opinion of those. And I'm sure they've gotten a lot better. Neil says, is there a trick to reading iOS documentation? I feel like I am missing something when I read, and it doesn't go too easy. Anyone have any advice? Mark, I'm looking at you. I don't know if Mark has answered this. He probably did. Yep, down here. But I'll give my 2 cents anyway. Like I mentioned, me being able to get good at Apple documentation also coincided with me learning iOS more. Right, the more you understand how iOS works, the easier the documentation is. So it's kind of like two things, right? You have to kind of get used to Apple's documentation, but also have a better understanding of iOS. At least that's how it worked for me, right? Like when I didn't really have a good understanding of iOS, the documentation was like a different language to me. So I would kind of also focus on learning the fundamentals of iOS and how all that works, and then that'll help with your documentation. We'll see what Mark's answer was, see if it was anything like that. Vishnu says, when I tried your delegates protocol video, it wasn't pushing the view controller, and ultimately I had to use the segue because I tried it on Swift 4 while your codes were Swift 3. So I haven't gone back and updated all my videos for Swift 4 because the Swift 4 update is like super easy. It's not like the Swift 2 to Swift 3, what you had to do like full-blown rewrites of some stuff. But Swift 3 to Swift 4, you should be able to get through it just in the converter thing that like helps you out. But I'll go back and take a look. And also like check out the source code. I think a lot of people don't realize, I'm basing this on my comments on my video, that I attached the source code to the description. So maybe try downloading that, run the converter, and then see where your code is different. Thomas says, thanks for your insight. Instead of audiobooks, I would check out Fireside Swift and other podcasts. Have them on in the car all the time and thoroughly enjoying it. Yep, as you guys may know, I was just on Fireside Swift 2 episodes ago, so definitely check them out. And then I believe I recorded Swift Coders with Garrick like a week ago. And I believe it's coming out Tuesday. He said end of November, early December. So I don't know the exact release date of it, but my episode might be coming out this Tuesday or maybe next Tuesday, I think. So, but yeah, there's podcasts. I definitely recommend that. And my reason for that is just my whole thing about learning is just exposing yourself and just immersing yourself in the culture, whether that's Twitter, podcast. Even if you think you may not like understand everything they're talking about in the podcast, at least you're hearing it. You're hearing the terminology. You're hearing what they're talking about. And that way, when it finally like does click, all that kind of pieces together and you're like, oh yeah, I remember they talked about that. Now that makes sense now. So like I said, even if you may not understand what they're talking about, still listen. It just exposes you to it and will make your learning easier. All right, guys, I'm going to do I got to go here in like 10, 15 minutes. So I got to do some rapid fire question time. So I'll try to get to all the questions. So if you have any last minute ones, go ahead and ask them now. Just know you're probably going to get a quick answer. Lightning round time. Zico says, hi Sean, which resources for learning iOS development would you recommend for advanced programmers? I feel a lot of them are either too basic or just don't go into enough depth. So I don't know if you've explored all the YouTube channels. If you've looked at Brian Vong's channel, Let's Build That App, he goes into pretty advanced stuff, and it's all programmatic UI. And I know a lot of his courses go pretty in depth. So if you haven't checked his out, I would definitely do that. Other than that, like I said, I'm just kind of myself taking the next step into getting into super advanced stuff. And I just got that book that I talked about earlier. If you missed the beginning of the stream, I talk about the book. So go and watch the replay when it goes up. And you'll know more about that. Abraham, thoughts on ARKit, and have you ever used it just for fun? So I used it when it first came out. I actually did an ARKit video, just like the demo one they had out when WWDC first announced it. I haven't messed with it recently. One of the videos that's high on my list too is because now that I have the iPhone X, the facial recognition. Literally, you map stuff on the face. They have a sample app about that you can use. So I'm going to play with that and probably do a video on that. And it'll be similar to the ARKit one. It'll just be like an overview for people that are interested in like what this face mapping can do, right? It's not going to be here's how you make Snapchat filters. It's not going to be super advanced. It's going to be very broad, again, just to give people basic knowledge of it. You're not going to be able to build an app from it, but again, just to have basic knowledge. So what's holding me back from ARKit is pretty much art. Like you have to have the 3D models and stuff like that, and I don't know how to do that stuff. So if I had like a partner, so if anybody does 3D modeling, hit me up. But yeah, that if I had like the artwork or the assets and I just had to code the AR stuff, I'd be all about it. But I don't really have the assets, so it's kind of holding me back right now. Adam says, have you ever had to use notification, remote or local? Do you know of any resources other than documentation? So yeah, I mean, I've used both remote notifications, which is usually like on a timer, like every 7 days, throw up this notification, or, when this happens, throw up this notification. That's pretty simple. That's all done in the system. And unfortunately, like documentation might be the only way. Or if you don't want documentation, watch WWDC videos. I believe 2016 is when they came out with the new notifications framework. So that would be a good one to watch. And they talk about both remote and local. That's usually where I start when I want to learn a new framework, because I watch the WWDC videos on them, and then I'll dive deeper into the source code. And when I say source code, usually on those WWDC videos, they give you like an example project that they built. So I would definitely check that out. But yeah, with push notification or remote notifications, typically you use like a third party. I mean, OneSignal's one of them. There's like a bunch of them out there. OneSignal's one. Who else have we used? I think we used like Carnival before, or Sail Through, something like that. I don't know. There's a bunch of like third party ones that you can use remote notifications with. Mark is answering Neil's question here. Pick up on the keywords, use those keywords to perform another search. And if you don't understand, you read the first time, exploring documentation. It's like, yeah, that's true. I mean, I always find myself like clicking links, and before I know it, I'm like, 8 branches deep into something. So Vencel says, hey Sean, I'm trying to implement a JWT token. Yeah, okay, JSON Web Token. That's what I thought. In my app, I couldn't find any good API for RS-256 JSON Web Token. Every API supports HS encoding. This is not speaking my language. Do you have any experience with JSON Web Tokens with RSA keys and Swift? So I've consumed them, right? Like I've gotten JSON Web Tokens from an API and then like used that token, but I don't have any experience. It sounds like you're like trying to build like a backend, and I don't have any like backend experience. So yes, I've consumed them. I have not built them. So I probably can't help you there. Wesley, good to see you. Yep, live. I'm getting ready to wrap it up now. Just kind of doing my lightning round answers. I'm getting ready to go meet some friends for lunch, watch a little football. Kirk says, if you buy Swift books digital, the OBJC ones, included most of the time, you'll get free updates as they update them from new versions of Swift. I bought the OBJ books and two and have 4 for free. Yeah, I thought about doing that. I don't know. For some reason, I wanted a book. I don't know if it's just this 6-hour plane ride I have coming up, going back across the country. But yeah, I don't know. I wanted a book. I get it though. I agree with you 99% of the time. For some reason, I wanted the book. I don't know why. Louis says, I love your videos. Appreciate that. Hi Sean. What do you think about iOS freelance nowadays? Will people who have learned Swift without engineering knowledge influence on rates? Now I see about 50 plus proposals under every single job. Well, I've said this before. I think you're in the wrong place. When you say proposals under every single job, I'm assuming you're looking on, the Upwork sites, the whatever websites of the world. And Avar is right below you. Is our local Upwork expert, so he may have some more insight on you. But my freelancing always comes from my personal and professional network. I've done videos on this. I've talked about it a lot. You can go ahead and check out. I think I have a video called "How I Get My Contracts" where I talk about that in depth. So if you want to hear my take on that, go ahead and listen to that. But yeah, I don't use those websites. Not to say that they're bad and like you shouldn't. It's just I feel it's better to use your personal and professional network. I understand you may not have that, so this may be your only choice. But I just don't have experience using those sites, so I can't give better advice on that. How often do you see tests implemented in production apps? Can be nice to see a video on test integrations. Yeah, so I need to get better at testing. Again, like I said, I'm still learning myself. So testing is another thing I need to improve on. And just with contracting, testing just doesn't happen, at least in the contracts I have, because the client, you're always under a time crunch, and implementing a whole testing suite takes time. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but typically in contracting, at least the ones I've worked on, you're always under a time crunch, and unfortunately, testing is one of those things that usually you just don't do. When I say testing, like implementing unit tests or UI tests or everything like that. So that's just what I've seen. And again, fully admit, I'm not saying that's correct. I'm just saying that's the reality. And I do need to get better at tests. So to answer your question, how often in the production apps that I've worked on, there have been no testing suites. Or if there has been, it's been very minimal, and maybe around like one very, very important feature. Not like a full, never 100% code coverage for sure. Again, it might be only like 15% code coverage, and it's only because this specific flow is like super important and we don't want to break it. Yeah, and again, that's something I need to get better at. Yep, more test requests. So I'm not gonna make a video on it until like I feel confident in it. So just I would love to do a testing video, but it'll be when I've had experience with it and once I got better at it. If anything, put it to anything beyond just the basic, here's what a unit test is, here's how you do it, which is still valuable because you got to start somewhere. So that kind of testing video may come soon, but anything more like advanced, it's probably going to be a while because again, I got to get experience with it myself. The crowd says, hey Sean, how's subcontracting going? So it's, again, I've been on a pause for about a week and a half. So I would say, I don't know if Doug's in here or not, but I would say it went pretty well. I mean, I have no complaints. He and I still need to kind of talk about what could have been done better or like what, could be improved. Yeah, I think it went okay, but it's not past that single person. And he only did like 2 screens. It wasn't anything major. So I'm still very in the early experimental phase. Nothing too crazy. No problem, Neil. Ben says, firing Siri, settings key. Okay, I'm gonna look at that later. Greg says, agree, Sean, immersion learning is probably the most effective. Yep, and it takes time. Like I keep, saying this, like this whole thing is a super long journey. Don't expect to be a programmer in 3 months. Like you're always learning. It's a super long journey. Again, I've been doing it almost 3 years. I still feel like I know, I'm confident in my knowledge, but I still feel like, man, there's so much I don't know. I still feel junior because there is just so much to learn. You just got to immerse yourself. I just don't want people to have the wrong opinion that you can learn and become like an awesome programmer in like a couple months. It's a lifelong journey, to be honest with you. Kimbo says, is it important to master unit testing according to you? Again, building off of what I just said a little bit ago, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to be an independent contractor, freelancer, probably not. If you want to go work at a major company, that's a mature app, it's been around for years, they're not trying to launch their app, they're trying to maintain their app and just build new features, then I would say testing is important. So well, first of all, let me back that up. It's important no matter what, but as far as like prioritizing it on where you should learn it, that depends on what path you want to take on what I just said. VJ says, share your prep plans for next year when you start preparing. Yep, and again, part of it is that advanced Swift book, and then it's I'll go into more detail, maybe even do like a vlog on it, but it's basically that advanced Swift book to step my Swift game up, and then cracking the coding interview to just brush up on the whiteboarding interview type stuff. Thanks, you really helped me a lot. No problem. Sean says, who's your favorite NBA team and favorite forward? So I don't really have an NBA team. I grew up a Jordan fan in Chicago. But once Jordan left, I stopped. I just started following players. So now I gravitate towards players. My favorite forward right now is probably Giannis. Just I like watching the young players, mature and evolve into like great players. When they start as a rookie. It's kind of my favorite part about basketball. All right, last question. Then I got to take off unless somebody gets a last second one in. Hey Sean, master student in Chicago. I'm sorry, master student in computer science. Trying my hand at Swift. How long does it take to get a usable knowledge before using ARKit? So if you have no Swift, but you want to, so I'm assuming your situation is you want to build an AR app, but you don't know Swift. I mean, to be honest with you, ARKit wasn't, and again, I have very minimal experience. I don't know what kind of AR app you want to build. I'm sure the more advanced app you want to build, the more difficult it is. But I would say it's just like any other app. If you wanted to build, I don't know, a map app, right? You're gonna have to learn MapKit, just like you're gonna have to learn ARKit. So I would say it's just another framework, to be honest with you. But yeah, you're gonna have to learn the basics of Swift for any other framework. So yeah, you're still gonna have to learn the basics, but I wouldn't put ARKit as this crazy advanced thing. That's above all the other frameworks. I just put it again, just MapKit, Core Data, whatever, insert random Apple framework here. It might be a little more difficult, but nothing crazy. Yeah, Harden for MVP, he's killing it. Thoughts on CS with Swift? Also, thanks for your channel. All right, last one, then I really gotta go. So you don't really use it that often. I'm assuming we're talking about like the computer science, like algorithms, data structures, all that stuff. We'll use data structures, obviously. But as far as like those types of problems that you may be practicing or learning in CS, you don't really use them in day to day. Don't get me wrong. I think a computer science background is a huge advantage for you. Just having those fundamentals coming into learning Swift is a huge advantage. So I wish I had one. I'm not knocking it at all. But as far as like, do you actually use that knowledge in the day to day? Not really. All right, guys, gonna take off now. Thanks for showing up. More videos coming this week. Again, we're back at it starting Monday, and we'll see you guys next week.